about the litigation, turn to some wage and hour, and I'll start with Francis on the wage and hour front with the meal and rest break litigation and some of the pay issues, minimum wage claims that you see coming forward. Can you tell me about how you approach it within your company and what you think of these claims and where you see them going in the future?
Well, that's a lot to ask, but we are very proactive about it, and we have been proactive for years on wage and hour matters. And if you're not, you're making a mistake. And if you're not willing to listen to new ideas, you're making a mistake. You have to always be evolving on this issue, always be looking for what's the current problem, what's the new law that's happening, what you need to do to comply. You should be asking yourself that all the time, because it's changing all the time.
The CRA sends a weekly email out, and they have a 2 minutes where you'll learn all the laws that are coming down. Like there's a new plastic straw ban that's happening in Los Angeles. There's an arbitration clause. There's a lot. So with that, if they don't have legal counsel, which, it's really important to get that information. And if you join the CRA, you'll get it for free.
There's an amazing amount of stuff on the internet. But what we do is we have our policies in our handbook. We have our rest period policy in our handbooks, our meal period policies in our handbooks. You need to have a good handbook because that's where it all starts. Then, when we onboard people, we have them sign off acknowledging our rest period policy, acknowledging our meal period policy, and our meal waiver policy, which they can agree to or not agree to. And then we roll those out periodically as we move forward. Without getting into it all, there's penalties that you may have to pay, right? If they miss the meal period under certain circumstances. We have our system set up to where they're auto-paid. It just happens. And then we talk to our managers about managing those employees who seem to have a lot of meal period penalties coming their way.
So Francis, you like paying out those automatic penalty payments then if they miss a break?
We like paying out, yes. We like paying out because it's the law and we want to comply with the law at all times.
There's an argument though too that the employee, the law says the employee can, on your brinker, you don't have to force them to take a meal break, but a lot of employers do go more conservative like you.
So what we do are we require them to take these meal periods. Because imagine a world where you don't require them to take meal periods. What's going to develop is what we all know. They're not going to take them because there's a default to not take them. So what does that mean? Your payroll records are going to show no meal periods being taken. And so when that person sues you, what do your payroll records back up? Your version or their version? So we try and force the meal periods on our people, and we'll pay the penalties if we don't get there. And then we try and issue counseling memos for those who are problems. Because you have to make them available, but we're not interested in having records that we made them available that don't show we made them available. They simply show they're not taken. And I'm going to guarantee you something, when the litigation hits, it wasn't made available. It's all the testimony you're going to get. And that's what everyone's going to say, and then you have a problem. So we document that by making them take that.
Good practice.
On that note, I agree. Paying the penalty pay is essential to making sure that your record as the employer shows that in good faith you've done everything possible to pay out your employee when it was due to them. However, I used to have a guardrail in place so they couldn't miss more than 2 meal periods before their 5th hour in a 2-week period of time. And if they did, they would be documented for it. So adding a layer of discipline brings their attention to it because they don't want to be written up, because they don't want to lose their job. But it goes back to that consistent communication that we were talking about earlier.
Very good. Joseph, anything to add on that?
No. Well, this is for the meal and, the time breaks. One big thing that I think that we had a small coffee shop and we were using Square. And they fixed the problem since, but relying on some of these especially smaller POS systems to help guide you with the wage and hour claims for California is a very bad idea because a lot of them are not sophisticated enough to, one, do the right thing, or 2, identify the problems that you might be having in a really easy, brilliant manner. So sometimes you just default and set the POS system, and you think it's going to take breaks, or you can get into some kind of weird, shifty areas, or where some POS systems will auto clock them out for a 30-minute break. And I don't think there's anything worse than auto clocking an employee out that's actually working. That's probably worse than refusing them the break. So I check your POS on
Good
those
point.
kind of things.
Good point.